for the meeting that we're here for this week about is how can port states and flag states better deal with seafarer abandonment issues. That's obviously such a very challenge for seafarers. It's certainly something that when our chaplains deal with it, it's probably a challenge for them too. It's probably emotionally draining to see these seafarers who are stuck in another country with no way to get home, maybe not being paid. The action we're taking here today is to try and mitigate those impacts on seafarers, put better tools in place, and then I, as a resource, when a chaplain reaches out to me, can share what these resources are, what the tools are, what the outcomes are, and hopefully empower them to give better advice to the seafarers facing these abandonment challenges. Sure, I'm Phil Schifflin with Seaman Church Institute Center for Mariner Advocacy. I'm here today as a member of the ICMA International Christian Maritime Association delegation to the ILO, the International Labor Organization. The IMO and the ILO are the two organizations that both create international treaties that impact seafarers. The IMO, the International Maritime Organization, a lot of their treaties and instruments really focus on the ships. Obviously, the seafarers sail aboard those ships, so those international instruments often have an impact on seafarer well-being. International Labor Organization deals with treaties and instruments that deal with labor issues, all sorts of labor issues, including seafarers. So one of the international instruments is a Maritime Labor Convention 2006 that is all focused on seafarer rights issues. Since ICMA is an association of seafarer welfare organizations, something like the Maritime Labor Convention 2006 and how it impacts seafarer welfare is certainly important to us, and we try to attend these meetings so we can advocate on behalf of seafarers as these amendments to these international instruments are being considered. We have chaplains that are visiting with these seafarers daily, face-to-face, interacting with them, seeing what the challenges are. And I think it's important that a representation have experiences in the maritime field that they can draw upon. So typically when we choose our delegation, we try and choose a cross-sectional experience that helps us not to be naive. My own experience with 30 years in the Coast Guard, work with the Maritime Organization, attending IMO meetings, work with industry in the maritime industry in my Coast Guard capacity, working as a member of the U.S. government with other governments. I've at least been exposed to all these issues before, and it helps me to approach this informed with a better understanding of some of the challenges we face. And I don't think any member of the tripartite group has anything but the best interests of seafarers in mind, but there's always other issues they have to deal with. That's not true for ICMA. For ICMA, we're a seafarer welfare organization. The reason we exist is to help seafarers. I think everybody knows that our voice is probably one of the purest voices as to what is in the best interest of seafarers. I think it's appreciated by the other members to have that input. It's usually not hard to figure out what is better for seafarers. And if you take a look at the issue before you, what is more favorable to seafarers is usually pretty easy to determine. So it's if there was something that was hard to determine, I think it's something like that we'd be silent until we had opportunity to reach out to the ICMA membership and confirm what our position should be. But for the most part, what is good for seafarers is usually pretty transparent. Sure. The International Labor Organization is interesting because in the tripartite format, there are countries, then there are the employers, the owners, and then there's the labor, in this case, the seafarers. Each of them have an equal voice at the meeting, and for anything to be done, each one of those three groups need to approve it by 50%. So really, it's kind of an interesting model because you do have to get consensus amongst all the participants. The way ICMA helps to inform and influence that is when there are issues that are up for consideration, and we view one position more favorable for seafarers than another position, we try and find those individuals amongst those three groups that might yet be undecided and trying to persuade them to act in a fashion that would be more favorable to seafarers. The important thing to recognize is that while I'm an employee of Seaman Church Institute, and I'm here as a member of ICMA delegation, Seaman Church Institute absolutely wants me to be a resource to any port chaplain any place around the world. If there's a question that you have that you need advice on, please feel free to reach out to me.